Hey guys, long time no see. I recently attended a one day event, one day, three games, um, and I brought a list that's basically I didn't really want to bring my strongest list, which is my beast herds, because I don't know, it's just the sort of thing where you've got a small scene in Australia, you know it's a little bit boring to play one with the same list the whole time, and for other people against the same list all the time. Um, and also, typically, like it's my strongest list, and it's more sort of like a 2 day big event that I might be like, all right, I'll take my best and I'll do my best. Whereas one day is I'm sort of like, oh, I'll take things a bit more experimental because there's no second day to go into and go like, oh, this really doesn't work and it's not fun. So having just the one day, it's like, well, you know, even if I don't enjoy it, it's only 3 days, only three games. I'm just hanging out with a bunch of people that I like anyway, so sort of lower stakes, I guess. I will go through my list. There we go. Got rid of myself. Basically, the theory behind my list was Seven Sins seems like a cool idea for warriors. I've seen Hermanard do it himself, and was sort of interested in doing it sort of the way that I'm interested in. And pretty much that just involves having a whole bunch of Chosen, because I really like Chosen. Um, didn't really, I mean, you've got sort of limited choices. I didn't really want chariots or single models. So it was like, if I'm having sins on everything, basically it's warriors, warrior knights, knights, and chosen. I don't like chosen knights, so pretty much was down to three guys, three unit choices that I could pick from. Um, Pretty much, I'm actually going to go through my models next because I really like how they turned out. I painted them up pretty quickly for this one, but pretty much what I did with the army was I wanted to sort of represent all different like races in Ninth, based on the sin. And that kind of informed some of like the unit size choices, and what was going where. It was more because of like a lot of, like I was printing some things, but a lot of this was stuff that I already had in another army, or not used yet, stuck in a bits box. So a few of these, like there's probably, even with, if you just look at the idea that I'm doing, you can probably do it more optimized and in a different way, or with different marks in different places on other units and stuff. But a lot of this was just what marks work with the models that I'm using, and knowing that like what can I build around that, basically. Like for instance, my Pride Knights are like GW Bretonnia models, so similar to King of Aquitaine, and I only have five of them, so I couldn't one, if I was going to use them as like my idea of Pride, I couldn't use them for any other unit because I don't have any other Bretonnia looking units, like models, I should say, and I don't have more than five knight models for them, so I had a limit of five that I could do. But anyway, I'll get into it. So basically, I had an Alchemy Master and an Evocation Adept. I took Veil Walker on the Alchemy Master because I thought it would be quite handy to have reroll armor on my Hellfire. To be able to boost its range and go like 30-inch Quicksilver Lash might be handy, or like boosting the 18 inches on the attribute, or some of the buff spells might be needed, I thought. But realistically, I didn't end up using it all that often, so I don't think that I would pay that 90 points again on an Alchemy Master. It's more of a evocation or occultism thing, I'd think. My core was 8 dogs, a unit of 14 Envy Warriors, a unit of 10 Lust Warriors. Lust guys had paired weapons and Envy guys had halberds. I had a big block of Great Weapon Wrath Chosen. I had a big block of Greed Chosen with a Flaming Banner. I had a big block of Gluttony paired weapons chosen with the Flaming Standard. I had a small unit of Sloth chosen, just with the shields. And I had the 5 Warrior Knights that I was talking about before, all with Pride. My opponent brought Vermin Swarm. A similar list style to what he's been using before, but testing out not having the Dictator. I don't think he's taken Doomspark devices to an event before either. He might have practiced like a couple of games with them or something at home. But he actually submitted his list with 3 Doomspark devices when they're 195 points. And then, like the day after list submission, the update was released, bumping them up by 55 points. So Sam sort of just, like, he didn't actually even have to. The TO was like, look, it was after list submission, so we'll just roll with it. But Sam decided he wanted to submit the new list. I think, one, because like it would probably feel a bit fairer for him. Like, I would empathize with the idea of, like, you don't really want to play something that's just been nerfed for sort of 2 reasons. One is, like, it feels a little bit dodgy, but also, you know that you can, if you know you can never take something again, it makes it a little bit less fun, in my opinion, where I'm like, cool, even if I do well, I've got to rejiggle this. So I pretty much always would rather just play with the current army, and I think Sam might have been similar to my thinking there. He brought Witchcraft Adept on the Bell, a Thalma Adept with Stand Behind. He brought the Doomblade Legate. He brought one with the Swarm Master, so the extra grind auto hit things. He brought the Senator, which was his general, which pretty much with the Doomblade in front and, well, in fact, even just a champion in front because of the litter. Basically, having the Whispering Bell meant that guy could hide in a 5-wide unit. So he didn't need to stand behind, he could just be further back. He had Crown of the Wizard King and Cowl of the Apostate. Cowl gives him Holy Triumvirate or Khaleesian Pantheon. One, like, maybe both those rules, I don't know. But essentially what that functions as it means that his adepts get to choose from 1 to 6, and he himself, even though he's only an adept with the crown, an apprentice with the crown, he gets 1 to 4, which was a really interesting combination that I didn't like notice prior to the game, but it's quite clever. I like it. Then he just had a guy on a brute with Potion of Strength, a pistol that I don't think he ever used, and able to give his Fethus brutes Swift Stride. He had a big unit of Black Furs with Rending Banner. He had a big unit of Legionnaires with Spears and Banner of Speed. He had a big block of Fethus Brutes. He had a big block of Plague Disciples with Great Weapons. And then he had 2 Doomspark devices. Next, I think we'll go to my army. So this might end up being a long video. But anyway, I just wanted to show you guys this. I think it's cool. I like it. This is how it turned out. It was able to fit in a really small case, which I liked. It was handy because I was flying up to Brisbane. Basically, the dwarves there are my greed boys. The lizards behind them are Sloth. The dogs are just dogs. Those rats at the front are Envy. I'm not really happy with those guys. I'd like Storm Vermin models, but I didn't have them, and I didn't have the time to print them. So one thing that's sort of on my to-do list is I've got files that are similar to Storm Vermin models. I'm going to print them off, and I'm going to basically redo this unit because they don't look very good, in my opinion. The elves here, who I painted up like Dro from, I don't know if it's specifically D&D, but like at least Forgotten Realms, look with the ebony skin and the white hair. On the right is my Alchemy Master, on the left was my Evoc General. That unit was only of actually 10 Lust Warriors. I don't think I've got closer shots of the behind guys, so behind them I've got my Gluttony Chosen, which is basically warrior models but with beast herd heads, and next to them were my Pride Knights, and these were my big old Raft boys, who I was really happy with. I just reckon they look like such sick models, and they were so big that I had to do like a lot of work to make them fit. The guys at the back are standing sort of like upright and at an angle on a rock, just because I couldn't get I could have made them probably fit 5 wide, but I couldn't then also have the models in front of them, so I had to get a bit creative there. Well, that's not what I wanted. Anyway, and just a close-up of my knights, who I liked. Yeah, so that was basically it. That's the vibe of the army. yeah, it's all 7 sins, different races. Thought it was pretty cool. Realized I didn't really talk about what I thought about the matchup first. So I went through a bit of a back and forth on this one, because at first I was like, look, I've got Chosen, they've got a buttload of medium attacks, that's the perfect thing to deal with big blocks of rats. And then I considered a little bit more closely and did a little bit of maths, and basically realised that probably what actually happens, they do a buttload of damage to the rats, they don't break, they do a decent bit of damage back to me, and eventually, because I am losing attacks every time they hurt me, I probably get ground down, lose the combat, and get no points out of it. So by the time we reached the table, I was not very keen on the matchup, basically. I did think... So we were playing Breakthrough, and I was like, well, I've got more scoring units. He's only got 3 of them. There's a decent chance that I can, if I play it well and I position it well, I can shoot 1 or 2 scoring units down a flank. I can kill one of his scoring units, and I can stop one of the other ones from getting there. So I was sort of thinking, mainly wanted to focus on winning the objective, wanted to be a bit conservative with my movement in terms of like, because I don't want to fight him one-on-one, I have to manufacture ways that I'm fighting him 2-on-1, basically, without then getting countercharged and losing anyway. So that was sort of the trick here, that I need to figure out a way that I was able to, despite not having like a movement advantage or really any mobility, that I was sort of able to win the movement game. That was the big thing, really, that I was thinking was going to be the key to me winning. I don't know that I was... Like, as in, if I was to win, that's what I would have to do, basically. What's that? Okay, so this is how it is. The deployment type was Dawn Assault, whichever one you lose, a corner each. I won the roll for sides, and honestly, I wasn't really sure that either side was all that valuable to me. I was sort of thinking if I went up the top, I would be able to use the house to my advantage rather than my opponent getting to use it to his advantage. When I started deploying, though, I sort of thought maybe the house was more troublesome than anything else, to be honest. I might have been better served being over on the other side. And sort of in that, like from our perspective, the right-hand corner, castling up a bit and sort of advancing down, because I would get to counter-deploy Sam, which I did. He dropped everything, and this was my attempt at a counter-deploy. He's got the Doomspark devices here. He's got the Blood Furs, the Legionnaires, who will, in the first turn, basically reform to be 5 wide and end up a whole bunch further forward. Anyway, he's got the Feather Spirits, and then he's got the Plague Disciples. So the most annoying thing here was that I didn't have a good spot for my chaff. So this was, I think, probably where I realised I really shouldn't have picked this side, basically. Because this hill was quite annoying with my opponent able to take the first turn and me not being able to see past. Like, if I could get onto it, it'd be fine. But the dogs sort of were going to take space, push me too far over, and have too many units they couldn't see. He'd be able to move up pretty aggressively and then maybe just charge me. So I decided I'd just deploy a little bit back. I'd have the dogs 1 wide and sort of see what I could do there. Out of sight is my knights. They're over on the left here. Basically, their whole goal is sort of them with the Sloth Chosen, basically, are just wanting to push down that left flank. I sat my Envy Warriors over here, kind of for 2 reasons. One was that I didn't really have space for them. And 2 was I was sort of like, maybe over there they can look scary enough that one of these blocks that I am going to struggle to deal with will just go and sort of deal with them. And I'll be like, fine losing the Envy Knights, the Envy Warriors. Hopefully something important comes to sort of deal with them, basically. In the end, I think those Plague Disciples are sort of the least important thing in his army, so it's maybe less important that I distract them, but I didn't really have a better position for them anyway, so, yeah. I don't know, I still don't really have better ideas here. Like, I've identified some things that are bad in terms of peeking this side, but I don't really have a better idea for deployment at this stage. Maybe I should have stacked that right side a little bit harder. Invested on both sides. Maybe. I'm not sure. I don't have many pitches, by the way, so this is just going to be an exercise in us figuring things out together. So this is after my magic phase, I want to say. So basically my turn 1, I've just pushed up to chaff his blocks. Because between the Doomspike devices and the... Anyway, between them and like his magic, he sort of had ways, I think, to kill and panic my dogs early. So I was like, rather than moving backwards, I just use them now, push up vaguely aggressively. So they were sort of like out of overrun range, but keeping an eye on being able to maybe charge him 2-on-1 or something later on. Just moved back with the Envy guys, pushed the Knights outside the arc of the Doomspark device. The Doomspark device couldn't see the Sloth chosen, but with sort of the lack of ability I had here or lack of space I had to put the Greed Knights where they could be seen and just deal with it if you wanted to do something with that device. I also killed with my magic. I think I got a bit lucky from memory, but I killed one of the Doomspark devices, so that was happy days. At this point, I'm still sort of thinking this is looking okay. I've taken off one of the Doomspark devices, and that was one of the things that I thought I needed to focus on early to remove them and take away that really dangerous range damage. And then it's just a matter of sort of manufacturing those 2-on-1s that I was talking about. But I am a bit clustered. I really don't have a better solution for doing that other than maybe just going like, the Doomspark devices. There were 2 of them, which I think why I was a bit more concerned during my movement phase. I didn't want to get charged by 2 and take 2 boosted Hand to Heavens before I strike. I think probably would have been better served being more aggressive, given that I've chaffed him, and just being like, if I push up, particularly with the Sloth chosen and the Greed chosen, I'm probably in a much better position. But at the same time, I mean, if I hadn't killed one of the Doomspark devices, he'd be able to chaff me with both of them, chaff 2 units. Because I'm so close, quite possibly one of them on its own can chaff 2 units. So, yeah, it's not really where I want to be. But I don't really have a better idea, so... what do we got? So the dogs died. He pushed up like this. The Plague Disciples just realized, I can just beat these enemy knights. So we're just going to fight you. I think the Sloth chosen charged the Doom Wheel and it ran back to over there. Because it had moved up onto like the hill and basically zapped, I think, my knights, my Sloth, my Greed, and my Lust warriors at the back here. And basically what we had here, this is after the Doom Wheel has fled. So I guess it's my mid my charge phase basically. And what I pretty much decided was I'm just gonna, before the game I was like, I can't really fight these units 1-on-1, and then in the game I was like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I should try it. So sent the Gluttony boys into the Legionnaires, hoping, Doomblade Man doesn't do that much damage to them, because he is hitting them on 4s. Winning on 2s, obviously. If I can give them a boost of armor or something, they'd be more able, with only AP3, they might even make some saves, and then hoping to just basically butcher some rats. Them being there, basically going to be out of line of sight of the Bloodfur veterans, and then I can get the Wrath guys into the Feather Brutes. And basically my theory was I'll probably have multiple turns of combat to kill those Legionnaires and the Doomblade Man, but it would probably end up with me depleting the Feather Brutes, but losing my Wrath Chosen, so it was sort of like a sacrifice that I was like, maybe, this will help those Gluttony boys do better. They both got in. I don't know what's next. Let's see. Oh, okay, yeah, cool. So they both got in, and basically what also happened with... It was really, really close, but Sam basically said, yeah, it's cool. Just have it. The position of the Gluttony Chosen was able to deny one file of Sam's attacks with the Feather Brutes when the Wrath Chosen charged them. So I was like, this is pretty good, but there was also a voice in the back of my head sort of going like, I feel like this is probably very close to going bad. But I didn't really know what the deal was. I'm trying to figure out why I felt I needed to push up with the greed block. Maybe the pitch is a little bit deceptive. It's just a lot closer than I thought. And I was worried about my bunker or something, maybe. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what I was thinking here. But at the time, it very much felt like I was like, look, I need to push them up because that fight is going to happen anyway, and that's going to make the fight happen closer to where I want it to happen, basically. Unfortunately, these combats weren't great. So I got some magic through, but I can't remember if I was a little bit unlucky or just how the dice... I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't a great phase for me or something. But I got through one spell, and it was to give my Wrath Warriors Flaming, because I didn't really think the Gluttony boys would need a buff, and I only had one defensive thing I could give them, which is Word of Iron. So, output-wise, I didn't really think they would need a buff. And then Sam could just stop Word of Iron if he wanted to, so I was sort of thinking about it that way. But turns out they do need a buff, because the Doomblade man killed 3 of them, and then I did 16 wounds to his unit or something, with 21, 24 attacks on 2s and 2s, so probably pretty normal and average. And then his unit did a couple of wounds to me, maybe, but pretty much I was like, if I've done 16 wounds, which I think is probably roughly fair, 24, 20, 17, yeah. Because he's got a 6-up armor and a 6-up Aegis save. So he's already done 6 wounds with his Doomblade. I get 8 from combat res. I've got a charger banner. I go to 10. He's got 6. He's got 3 ranks and a banner. So if he does 1 wound, he wins. I think he won by 2 in the end. I broke. He ran me down, but he couldn't get into the flank of the Black Orcs because of the Wrath Chosen, because of the positioning of the Bloodfur veterans, basically, because he's too long and he couldn't fit where he would need to be. So that wasn't great, and it wasn't what I was expecting or hoping for there. But in retrospect, I think that's what I should have expected to happen. Pre-game, I would have expected that to happen. During the game, I was like, no, I've got a chance. So it probably was just a bad decision. However, there was the point here where I was like, it's either charge or be charged. And it's better to charge. So, but, yeah, look, I don't know. I didn't love it. My Wrath guys killed 5, I think, Feather Brutes. Feather Brutes killed 4 of them or so. That pretty much just puts me in a real bad spot, because the Bloodfur veterans are going to kill the Greed Knights, and they butchered the Greed Chosen just got butchered. I think I had 2 models left after he finished striking, and I was pretty shocked. Chicks, I think I chose spike shields and everything. The Wrath guys just died to the Feather Brutes, because they just become great weapon wielders after that, and they take the same amount of damage. The Envy guys actually stuck in for a few rounds of combat against the Plague Disciples, but it was all for nothing, basically, because they lost in the end, and he was in my objective. I did give a go. This is probably the last picture, yeah. I did end up... Wow, okay. Yes, this is after the Gluttony guys have died. This is on his turn. Basically, after the Greed guys died, I sent in my Sloth Chosen. I sent in my Knights and just sort of went, look, I've kind of got to make something happen. If I don't do that, I might be able to get 2 scoring units into his objective, but he's going to have 3. So I don't really have a solution to that problem. Fought that combat for a while. The Sloth guys actually held in a lot longer than I thought they would. I did manage to get Word of Iron up, booster on them, I think, twice, which really helped, obviously. But eventually, yeah, I just ended up being killed there. I don't think I did. I think we only got to turn 5 here. And I think I actually might have lived with that in that grind. Like, I didn't break him or anything. But I think I survived on half points with the Sloth guys. And I might have kept my knights as well. Pretty much the end of the game was like... Alright, we were... Like, all their combats took quite a while. Because it was always like... Alright, you've got... Like, a character or 2. They've got different... Like, some of the characters have multiple initiative steps within them. I've got all these units with different marks and stuff, and often there was like questions about, okay, so these guys are slightly different. What do they take? What will they do? And we had a lot of combats happening from like my turn 2. My turn 2. So we didn't make good time, unfortunately. And I think probably that was more my fault than Sam's, to be honest. Like, normally I'm pretty fast, but I feel like this game, the fact that I was having so much trouble knowing what to do about it all, I think that sort of made me play slow. I'm not really sure, but I think I played a little bit slower than I should, and that I would normally. And I didn't really think about it until Sam sort of mentioned it a little bit later, like, just sort of as by the by. Because I lost this game 18-2. But, like, it was only getting worse from there. And Sam sort of mentioned, like, oh, yeah, like, it would have been worse if we'd finished the game. And I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even think about it at the time, really. I mean, 2's not that much better than 0, but, like, yeah. Realistically, if this game had gone another turn... I think we got to 5 turns, but we might have even only got to 4 turns. But whatever it was, like, whatever we got to, it was pretty clear that it would have only gotten worse for me. Like, at the end of this game, I had 1 Doomspark device. That's what I'd killed. I think I got the other one down to 1 wound with my last magic phase. So, like, I got 375 points. I would have lost... If we'd finished the game, I would have definitely lost all of my chosen... I think I would have lost my knights. I'd already lost my last warriors. Yeah, like, I mean, I'd probably lose at least one of my wizards in the end. So, like, yeah, it probably, like, deservedly probably should have been a 20-0, basically. If we'd gotten the full time. And I think I was slow, so it's actually probably my fault. And I probably should have thought about that. Normally, I would think about that in the game, realize that I was a slower player, and be like, oh, this is going to go badly for me, and the only reason we're not making him is more me than you, so I probably should have given him the points that he should have gotten. Yeah, sorry, Sam, I didn't really think about it at the time. Too busy drowning in the rats. Yeah, look, like, difficult matchup. I think, so as I said at the start, like, I think I needed to, like, outmaneuver him and sort of gang up on units. And I wasn't able to do that. Like, Sam deployed quite well. I'm often quite surprised by when an opponent just goes with their entire army up, because usually I play an army that when they do that, I can punish them. And it's not as if this army can't do that, but in this matchup, it can't do that. So I'm not really used to opponents being super aggressive at me, because I've typically got such aggressive combat lists. And I think that was part of my problem. I feel like I just thought I had more time. And then when I realized I didn't have any time, it was like, well, I've got nowhere to go. I don't have a turn or 2 to develop my position. I'm stuck from where I deployed. So I think the building was probably a problem, because I sort of jammed myself in where I had nowhere else to go. And if I'd given him the side with the building, it would have probably made his deployment more difficult and made it more easy for me to counter-deploy him. Because, yeah, thinking about it, like, if I had taken basically Sam's position, he would have struggled to get all that many units on the right-hand side of that house, and I might have just been able to push down there, down that side, and make it more difficult for him, which is probably a better idea and what I should have done. Yeah. Maybe... I probably also, if it was Dawn Assault, I probably also should have ambushed a couple of units. Just, like, mainly for objective purpose more than anything else. Like, knowing that I didn't really have room for some of my guys. I don't know who I'd want to lose, though. Yeah, anyway. I don't know. It was tough, and Sam deployed well and, like, played well. Like, it sort of was one of those games where there's not that much that's confusing or, I guess, difficult about what's happening. We're both playing static block lists, and it's in that sort of situation, it's almost like there's not, like, if you know the matchups in terms of like the unit matchup, there's not that much that can really be done, I don't think. It's sort of like Sam could move forward and be like, I can win these combats, and I sort of, barring any particularly clever maneuvering and use of terrain, which I didn't have, I couldn't really do anything about it. So Sam basically did everything he needed to do, and I didn't come up with a way to stop him. I think if we were to play this game again, I'd just try more things. I'd try sort of, I guess, playing a bit more spread out if I could. I wouldn't charge on turn 2. I would have just more... I guess if I'd pulled back, if he wants to declare the charge, they're still relatively long charges. So it's a little bit difficult because I probably want to buff to fight anything, otherwise I just lose. Particularly the Black Furs, because they're bloody elf initiative. But then at least it might draw him out of position. Like if one unit makes a charge and the others don't, he doesn't have any chaff, maybe that could have been better. Definitely something other than the strategy that I tried, basically. But I just don't have an answer at this stage. Like, these guys are just so good. They're so good in combat. The half combat res are just like... I thought I had a great answer to it, because I was like, you know, normally a lot of people are taking like single models and they take a small amount of high quality attacks. And I was like, I've got the opposite of that. I have heaps and heaps of decent attacks. So it's like, I'm going to hit you easily. I'm going to wound you easily. This is great. Like, this is the perfect thing to deal with rats. And it's just not the case. It's just not an answer to it. So I don't really have a great answer. Given that the Dictator isn't in this list, I'd probably be happier taking my Beast Herds against it. I'd probably be happier with, you know, the Beast Herd Hereditary, and with I've got a Jabberwock in my current list, having him run around. So, I mean, I'd be happier doing that, but at the same time, I don't see many ways to beat this, to be honest, when you don't have shooting. So, like, if you've got some hefty shooting that can just wipe out blocks and blocks of rats, maybe that's sort of an answer, but I don't really know much about what to do in combat, basically. I guess sort of one thing it's quite hard to do against an opponent who knows you're trying to do it, but like you're sort of looking to get single models or fast units or whatever around your opponent so you can hit him on two sides so he can't reform, and then just like grind him down. But even that would take ages. He'd still never run away. I don't know. Anyone wants to give me suggestions, feel free. Really trying to solve this puzzle, to be honest. But like, and the thing is, it's not as though across the world, like, Vermin Swarm players are just beating everybody. So it's not as if there are no answers to the book. So unless Sam has found some super strong army that no one else has thought of outside Australia, which is possible, but generally I wouldn't expect. Like, I mean, that happened with Akhtar's vampire build a few years ago. It's definitely possible. This is just sort of something that other people haven't really constructed and considered, but I don't think that's the case. I don't pay that much attention, but I think I've seen similar lists knocking about, and it doesn't seem like they're destroying everybody. So there must be an answer out there that I'm not getting, and I assume that the answer is not just going to be, well, you need shooting. Like, I don't know. I'm quite okay for my, like, this chosen list is quite rock, paper, scissors, I guess, and that it's all basically infantry. It's all quite slow, and I don't even have very good chaff. So, you know, this is the sort of thing where it's like, if he can just run in and beat my list, it's like, yeah, cool. Like, that's definitely partially my own fault for the list that I've constructed. My big problem is, though, that I don't think I have a good answer with any of my armies. Yeah. Anyway, if you guys have thoughts on it, let me know, because I'll be interested to hear from you. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, that's probably enough. 36 minutes. That's decent. I have 2 more games coming up, and I'm just starting another teams tournament like this week. We haven't done pairings yet. Taking the proper beast herds to that one, because I'm not brave enough to run an off-meta, untested list in those really tough international teams tournaments. So, yeah, I'll have a few battle reports probably coming out soon. I'll definitely do this one, because this one I think is... Like, this event is a bit interesting because my list is quite unconventional. Like, people don't take Chosen, and a lot of people I hear say that Chosen suck. And aren't good enough. But I think that they're... Like, this game notwithstanding, I think that in general, Chosen are quite good. They can do a lot of things. It's just that when you've got a static block-like list, not many of them can play like Sam's, where you just move across the board and go like, I don't care if you charge me. Like the Chosen, my list and the Chosen can't really do that against most opponents. Because if they get ganged up on, they probably will lose. But they're quite solid at being like, I'm going to take this position, like, play this objective really sound, and I'm going to make it hard for you to break into my position. Which is a little bit less of a dynamic style than like the single models running around with ancestors and elders and exalted heralds and stuff. So playing with those single models sort of, I think, would give people the impression that they're winning the game actively. And they sort of have a little bit more agency in terms of like, you know, if I lose this game, it's because I positioned these things wrong. I got them in the wrong spot. They got taken off. Whereas with a more block-like list, you can sort of be like, as I did in this game, it's like, look, I don't really know where I should place my units to do well in this game. I'm like, I don't really like the matchup. But I don't really have a way to sort of, or at least an obvious way to get around him or get out or manufacture the combats that I need. Whereas with single models, you'd be like, all right, he's got these blocks, I can get around him. If I don't want to fight him, I don't have to engage, so I just have to see if I get my opportunity later on. And that is probably a better way as well to deal with this, just because it, in part, like, it mitigates your losses. But yeah, I think, like, that the problem with Chosen and the problem with lists like my list aren't so much that the units in them are bad. It's just that when you take other things, you get the impression sort of that you have more control over the game. I think with a good macro strategy, not necessarily this list, but like you can have a good macro strategy and you can be like, all right, you know, I'm not necessarily going to be the one who is surrounding the enemy and applying pressure to specific targeted points because I've got hypermobility, but you can go, I'm going to take this area of the board, I'm going to make it so that you can't come in here, and once I've done that, it's like, well, you know, I've now controlled this objective. If you don't want to lose the game, you have to come engage me, and you can even do that without all that much range pressure, if you're, you know, resilient enough to range like these guys are. And I think you could absolutely drop a unit of Chosen into a lot of sort of the more meta Warriors lists, and they'd find a way, like they'd find a decent use for themselves by being there, pretty much. So that's my impression anyway. But by doing these 3 reports, I think it'll be interesting to see what other people think about how the list plays, and maybe, maybe some people will look at it and go, doesn't really, like, it shouldn't work like that, and you got lucky in this situation. I did get lucky in some moments in my later games, probably. But also maybe some people look at it and go like, oh yeah, actually, I sort of see some value from what those guys are doing. Maybe I'll give them a try. So yeah, that's what I'm sort of hoping for with this one. I will probably do my reports for the Beast Herd teams one, but we'll see how much time I have and how much interest I've got in it. So you can definitely look to the future for more of these, but I don't know about the team tournament. We'll see how I feel. Anyway, guys, thank you for sticking around. I'll catch you next time.